We've received quite a bit of interest in my free to be workshop, so to that effect, beneath this video is a link that will give you a description for the workshop, and we've also included a special discount. So if that's something you would be interested in, I would invite you to click that link, and I hope that you would find the course to be quite beneficial. The more you interact with a narcissist and you keep bumping into these brick walls and you just can't seem to coordinate well with them, you begin realizing that underlying the whole pattern of narcissism is a form of delusional thinking. And by that I mean you find out that they can't really reason well with you. They've already decided, look, I've declared what is true in my world, and if I declare it to be true, then it is. That's the delusion, period, end of discussion. And when they hold on to their delusional thinking, basically what it means is they have beliefs that may or may not be reality-based, or they have an inability to receive input from other individuals that might help them with a fuller perspective. They just simply can't go into that kind of space. Narcissists operate with what we might say is an absolutist way of thinking and being. Basically, in their mind, they've absolutely figured out, here's what you're supposed to believe. Here's what your priorities ought to be and how you ought to manage them. Here's how you ought to take care of tasks. Here's how you're supposed to interpret events. Here's how you should respond to me. Here's how you need to honor my wishes. They have all of these absolutes about how life is supposed to be. And then you come along and you let it be known, well, I don't think the same as you. I have different perspectives, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean one of us is right or one of us is wrong, but I just don't think or process exactly the same as you. And sometimes we're talking about what your core standards are, or values, or your preferences, and it can be just something simple as, you have a particular habit or taste or, way of doing things that's just minuscule. But nonetheless, the narcissist wants to persist. There's a certain way things need to be, and it's all based on what I say. That's the delusion. Now, what this says is there's one really large issue that narcissists cannot come to terms with, and it drives them deeper and deeper into their pathology. And that one issue simply is the inability to manage ambiguity. You see, I'm going to start with the assumption there's a certain amount of ambiguity that's built into all relationships. And when I say ambiguity, what I mean is there's a lack of certainty that we can often have. We can have questions about how things are going to unfold, and we can answer those questions very differently, and we're not always going to be on the same page. Sometimes as we engage with each other, we find that we have doubts about what is or how things ought to be, or there are multiple explanations that we can come up with, and we can see and interpret events and circumstances from various angles and possibilities. And the narcissist thinks to themselves, I can't deal with that. They cannot accept the fact that you don't think as they do. And so when you have this vague, ambiguous, I'm not quite sure, let's look at things from different angles, they get worse and worse. Basically, when you let them know you and I don't think the same, and that ambiguous sense of mystery or uncertainty hangs in the air for the narcissist, they're thinking, look, I have it all figured out. Listen to me. Quit being so difficult, and they just assume that you're rejecting, and it doesn't have to be that way. Once narcissists perceive that you're not buying into their certainty, that there's this vague, ambiguous gulf between you and them, then that's what I mean when I say the patterns that are the behaviors that are part of their narcissistic patterns become worse and worse. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. For example, in their struggle to come to terms with ambiguity, their demands become far more intense. They can be much more forceful and insistent in their communication. They're going to increase what I refer to as imperative communication. And when I say something's imperative, it's very declarative, black and white, do this, don't do that. And they'll use words like have to, must, can't, should, supposed to, got to, and they just can't let go of it. As they face ambiguity, they can go deeper and deeper into their criticism toward you. Well, it's just, you just don't know how to do things, and they can just nitpick and find all sorts of flaws in how you think and how you reason. Their arguing style can become increasingly belligerent. They cannot stand it that you will not go along with them, and so they can become more adversarial and ugly and irrational in the way that they manage their anger. Then, as the ambiguity hangs in the air, then you're deemed as stupid. And of course, in their minds, what that means is they're superior over you. You're just a dunce. Then, as this continues to be the case, they'll bring other individuals into the differences that you have, into the disagreements. We call it triangulation. And they'll try to convince other people that you're not making sense, but they are. And as a result, they can try to come towards you and say, see, everybody else thinks the same as me. Why can't you? And they just want to tie things down. In their inability to manage ambiguity, their stubbornness increases. How many times have you thought, I feel like I'm just talking to a brick wall. They can't hear me. Well, that being the case, you can see that their defenses go way up. They can justify and rationalize, and like I say, they won't receive input. There's like a thick, impenetrable wall. The anger can then turn into all sorts of resentments and holding on to grudges toward you. They can become closed-minded in the way that they show their disdain toward you. They look for ways to punish and shame and demean and belittle. It gets pretty ugly, doesn't it? And then basically in the end, because you may not fit tightly into their grooves, they're going to hold you in contempt and they'll hold grudges against you. And with some narcissists, it can be so strong that they just simply let it be known, I cannot deal with distinctions. I cannot deal with your differences, and you are now rejecting me. I take offense at it. And you may be thinking, hey, look, I'm just trying to be true to who I am. I'm not saying that I think you're a bird brain. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just saying I'm me. You're you, I'm me. And the narcissist, their thinking is like, no, there's too much vagueness there. I can't handle that. Your crime when that happens is you dare to illustrate that you think differently. Your crime is you don't want to get crammed inside that person's mold. Your crime is you're not fond of being told how inadequate you are. That's what we're talking about. And then, of course, the narcissist, if you were to say anything of that nature, they would reply, quit being, if they were honest, quit being who you are. Be as I say you should be. Conform, comply, defer. I'll be happy at that point. Now, you can see that this is a huge issue that narcissists deal with, and in many cases, they just simply can't get beyond it. But it does beg the question, is there a healthy way that people can respond to ambiguity? And of course, my answer is, well, yes. First and foremost, one of the healthy ways to deal with ambiguity is to accept the fact that variety is built into all of nature. And when I say nature, I include human nature. Nothing is 100% the same. And when you come along and think differently from me, my starting point is I can believe that. It makes sense because we're different. We're wired differently. We all have different experiences that we draw from. And then as part of accepting or dealing with ambiguity healthy, we can ask the question, well, now that I see that you and I don't think the same, how might I grow? How might you grow as we understand each other more fully? Novel idea. Narcissists certainly don't think like that. And then we can ask one another, what is it that you see that I don't see? And that can be part of the informing kind of process. You become a fuller person when you have that kind of information at hand. What is it in your backstory that predisposes you to think of things in ways that I don't? And that can be very fascinating as you learn how to process all of that. You can decide, okay, even though we have this ambiguity and this vagueness that may exist, can we still find some middle ground, or at least acknowledge that we each are free to be who we are, and let's live with that spirit of freedom and acceptance that goes along with it. And the narcissist, if you were to suggest those kind of things, their reply would be, hey, you know what? I just feel like you're asking me to give up my values or my opinions or my standards, and that is never going to happen. And you're thinking, that's not what I'm trying to say. And they're too shallow in their thinking to go along with that. They have such a strong sense of egotism and entitlement and false superiority and a need for dominance that it precludes them approaching you in your differentness with common decency. I must be in control is their way of thinking. My ways must be superior. You must be put to shame when you and I differ. That's what we're dealing with. And so we say that we already have the problem with narcissism, and then when you add ambiguity to it, it just takes them deeper and deeper into their pathology. And of course, you can finally get to the point of saying, never mind, I'll just go ahead and be who I am. Narcissists are too shallow, they're too insecure to allow room for ambiguity. But I'm hoping that in your mind and in my mind, we can have the thought that says, well, when I discover the ways that you and I differ, when I realize that we have a certain mystery that is not necessarily going to be solved right away, my response is, well, this means we still have room to learn. I'd like to do that. Narcissists can't think that way. I hope that's foundational to the way that you respond when differences show up. Now, I hope that videos like this can give you some good awareness of what you're dealing with. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. We're going to keep more videos coming your direction, and I appreciate you allowing me to be on your growth journey with you. I know that there are times when you are dealing with something like this that you think to yourself, I could use some therapy. And so many of you have taken that path, and I'm proud of you for doing so. I've been sponsored, I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below this video that will take you to their website. You have to answer a few questions, and then you get to select a therapist that you can work with. And it can be so helpful and refreshing when that person says, let's talk, let's figure out how we can manage the situation in a way where you can maintain your sanity, your sense of dignity. Get the help as the need is there. Now, I'm retired from my counseling practice, but in my retirement, I put together courses, online classes, and you can do them at your pace. You can share them with whoever you want. Each class has at least 25 teaching videos with guided questions and handouts. We have anger games about how to stay out of the traps they put in front of you. This is me about establishing your boundaries, free to be, finding yourself despite their control. Ready, Set, Connect about having healthy connections. On my website, we have access to my webinars, which are 90-minute presentations of different nature, but they've proven to be quite popular, along with my articles, access to my podcast, my books. So we have lots of resources for you. You know, variety is there, and human nature is such that we are quite different in many aspects with one another. Healthy individuals say, well, good, that gives us something to build upon, and you can still find a middle ground. Narcissists are not healthy enough to do that, and so when they prove incapable of managing their the ambiguity in front of them, I'm hoping you can see yourself still as separate and distinct. You don't have to conform to their mandates. And in doing so, as you commit to being a person of DRC, dignity, respect, and civility, like we do here on Team Healthy, you can still continue on your path towards steadiness, and you can ultimately, despite their protests to the contrary, you can ultimately become a person of peace.